Hey, and welcome back. In today's video, I wanted to talk about what goes into accepting a gig and, more importantly, what you can get out of it. I'm a working musician who plays with a variety of different groups and is on call for last-minute subbing, whether it be at a church, with another band, or any sort of situation you can imagine. There's this classic phrase that musicians talk about of having 3 different qualities for a gig, and if you can hit 2 of the 3, it's worth taking. That is good pay, good music, and good people. And so if you have a gig that is great music with your friends, but it pays very little, it's still worth doing because you're gonna have a good time. If the gig is with good people and great pay, then it doesn't really matter if you're playing a wedding gig where maybe you're not passionate about the music. If the gig is good pay and good music, maybe you can get over working with someone who is quite frankly a hassle to be around. I've certainly encountered all of these in my day, and when I was first getting started out, honestly, I just needed to fill my schedule, so if a gig met any of these and occasionally met none of these, I still took it. And there was a time in my life when I was playing over 300 gigs a year locally in a small town in the Midwest. Nowadays, I've kind of managed to consolidate that to usually around 200 a year, which is still plenty, but I'm making more money than I was before, and I'm playing better music than I was before, and usually with people I like. So back in early 2020, I was asked to play on a show at a restaurant just a mile away from my house with a great band that I play with a lot, Sly Joe and the Smooth Operators. The band leader is Joe Slyzalia, and a couple of the other members include Dave Jerbeck, who were both part of a video on my channel about recording a song without even hearing it. And this show is something they've done a few times, and it's a tribute to the album Abbey Road by the Beatles. So I signed on to do this, and of course, like everything in 2020, it was put on hold indefinitely. It ended up never getting rescheduled, but we did put together a little video of playing Come Together digitally because everyone was doing that in 2020. I couldn't release it on my YouTube channel because the Beatles are very uptight about use of their music in social media. Fast forward to 2024. In the beginning of the year, I was asked to take part in this show again, and it was set to be in November of 2024. As it got closer, I finally started tackling learning the music, which, as I dug in, I realized was way more work than I initially thought. This album has something like 17 songs on it, and I only really knew like 3 to 4 of them. And honestly, I know Here Comes the Sun, but I really didn't know the form and structure and how advanced it is in a rhythmic sense. So I put a lot of time into it, listening to the album and actually charting out the songs pretty thoroughly. Usually when I'm learning songs for a gig, I don't write out exact fills or even all of the grooves. It's more getting the structure of the chart and then getting the key pieces. I went through and typed these all up into Finale, rest in peace by the way, and wrote a pretty thorough chart for every song. I learned so much more about Ringo Starr and his playing, and I have such a deeper respect than I did before, and I already thought he was an amazing drummer. So that's another thing I got out of this is self-development, and that doesn't fit into that gig triangle, but it's somewhere else of like, is this helping me develop and grow as a musician? And in this case, it was a lot of extra work, but I think it's totally worth it. The morning of the show comes, and I wake up to a text from the band leader that one of the singers for the show got rough with his dog last night and had to get stitches on his lip and is unable to play tonight because you can't really sing with that stuff going on your face. So the show was canceled, and I was super bummed out. I'd been looking forward to doing this since 2020, so it's 4 years later, and we weren't able to do it. We did go and play a set of Joe's original music, and a lot of people came out to hear that album, but we're still grateful to hear us. After that weekend, we all chatted and worked out another date to do this show, and that is tonight. And this is January of 2025. Now, this was kind of a cool test that I didn't even think about, but I worked pretty hard on this music in late October and early November, and I felt pretty comfortable playing it. I certainly didn't have it all memorized, but I did have a good handle on it. So earlier this week, I put on my headphones, sat behind the kit with my charts, and decided to run through the album front to back And it was a really good test of my recall for this album. And I think that's an important skill that we as musicians need to develop, because you'll spend time learning something and then you might not have to play it again for a year. Like holiday Christmas shows are a great example of that. If you have to relearn it and invest a lot of time every year, it's just a waste. So your recall is an important skill to develop as a musician, and putting this aside for 2 months and coming back to it this week was a good test of that. There were some things I really needed to dust off and give it another run through, so earlier this morning I ended up putting everything together for the show in terms of equipment and running through and practicing it again. Typically when it comes to equipment for gigging, since I'm playing so much, I use one of 2 kits that I keep upstairs, packed up and ready to go at almost all times, and one of 2 cymbal bags, which I have a lighter set for jazz stuff, and then a set of a little bit heavier stuff for the pop music I play. Now, I'm deciding to bring my 80s Gretsch kit because I think it really fits the timbre of this music well, and I need an extra tom to cover some of these parts on the album. I changed out the front head for one that I released a video on in the fall, which is just like a no reso head, front kick head with a huge hole. And in fact, I even went as far as ordering some new cymbals from Bosphorus to try out on this gig because I felt like I just didn't have a crash that fit what I was hearing. So already at this point, even if it paid a lot of money, I've invested a ton of time in new equipment, changing out and selecting equipment, hauling more equipment that's going to be more of a process than I'm used to, along with preparing all the music. We're going to have a rehearsal here in a little bit to run through everything, which is super convenient because I only live a mile away from the venue, so everyone's just stopping by at like 4 o'clock. We're going to rehearse from like 4 to 6, head over to the venue, set up, eat dinner, and finally play this set that I've been looking forward to doing for 5 years now. I'm going to try to throw in some clips from the gig, but since I already know that the Beatles are very uptight about their music, maybe it'll be just drums only and not the entire band. But then after it's done, I'll come back here and kind of reflect on my thoughts with taking gigs and let you know how I think this one turned out all in all. Here's the rig. Gretsch 80s drums, 12, 13, 14, 20-inch bass, no head on the front. Bosphorus 15-inch groove hats, 17-inch 20th anniversary crafts, brand new. 21-inch 20th anniversary crash. And if anybody knows what this is for, leave it in the comments. So it's been a couple days since the show, and reflecting back on it, it was amazing. We had a ton of people out that night. I've never seen that place so packed, and they were crazy over the music. The first set we did the Abbey Road album in its entirety, and then the second set was all Beatles request, and the entire time it was like 20 people yelling songs at once and just going off the cuff and doing our best. There were tons of family and friends there, as well as a lot of local musicians from the community. So that was another thing that was really special and fun, being able to play this music for a bunch of people I care about and a bunch of people that I respect. Add that on top of all the good things that come out of this gig. Bringing it back to the gig triangle of good pay, good music, good people. In full transparency, I didn't know what I was getting paid going into this gig. In the end, we were paid a little under $200 a piece. I think that's more than fair considering this gig was super convenient for me. It was close to home. It was a fun thing to do, and I got to play with really amazing musicians. So the good music and the good people certainly check their boxes as well. Now, if you broke down the pay and divided it up by all the efforts that went into this, there's no way I could justify it for my time. But I really don't choose to look at this that way. I think if you want to make a career in music, you can't always be nickel and dimey with your time. Sometimes you need to just have a bigger picture view and do something because you love it. And I think that's tough for a lot of people who try to make a career in music, is balancing art and commerce and balancing a passion and a career. I love what I do, and I don't have complaints anytime I go perform. I love playing drums. I'm grateful that I get to be able to do this, and shows like this are a great reminder of that. Now, speaking of the show, I only put in some drum audio clips because I didn't want this video to get flagged and demonetized. But Joe and Dave are going to be releasing this on the Fox Menagerie YouTube channel, which is the group they co-founded, putting out videos every week. I've done some different videos about my gigs playing with them, as well as some drum cam clips of different songs I've tracked with them for their studio sessions. I'll have their video linked down in the description of this if you want to check it out. But I'll also put together some drum cam clips myself, if not the entire set, at least a few songs along the way. Go ahead and check that out if you want to see more about how this gig went through as a whole. Once again, thanks for watching this. I hope it was helpful to some of you out there, and leave a comment down below if you've had a gig like this and want to share a little bit about your experience. And until next time, thanks.